G'day everyone, Mr. Jones here, week 7, and what a fantastic week it is again. And we're getting down to the end of the term, and we really need to knuckle down and work hard. Last week we looked at fractions and adding and subtracting of fractions, and that was our focus. This week, for week 7, we are looking all about decimals. Now this week we are going to be looking at adding and subtracting decimals, but later in the week we're also going to be looking to multiply and divide decimals. So today is a bit of a we're sort of recapping old learning, but we haven't done it in a little while, so we're going to need to make sure we listen in. Let's start with a revision of decimals. A decimal is a number which contains a decimal point. Decimal numbers may be less than or greater than 0. The decimal point is used to separate the whole numbers, so the units or the ones, tens and hundreds, from the fractions, which are the tenths, hundredths, thousands, and it can go further. For this reason, it is always placed between the units column. Now, the units column is also could be known as the ones column, and the tenths column. 23 decimal point 6 would read as 2 tens, 3 ones, and 6 tenths. Further revision of place value. When writing whole numbers, each digit holds a place. This place represents the value of that digit within the number. 283. 3 units or 3 ones. 8 tens. 2 hundreds. When writing decimal fractions, place value is equally important. The place represents the value of the fraction within the decimal. 2 tenths, 8 hundredths, and 3 thousandths. Here is an example of a tool that we'll be working on during the week. Okay, the place value chart. We've got 4 hundreds, 0 tens, 2 units or 2 ones, decimal point, 8 tenths, 6 hundredths, and 1 thousandth. The number below is made up of a whole number and a fraction separated by a decimal point. As you move left along the number, each column is 10 times greater than the one before. As you move right along the number, each column is 10 times smaller than the one before. This is very useful to know when we're multiplying and dividing decimals, which we're going to do later in the week. Let's get on to the focus of today's lesson. Adding and subtracting decimals. To add and subtract decimals, follow these steps. Write down all the decimal numbers, one underneath the other. Make sure that all the decimal points are aligned. This is the reason why we use our flipped maths books. Okay, and this is the reason why we use grid books, because you must align all of your numbers one underneath the other. The only way you can get yourself into trouble when you are adding and subtracting decimals is if you do not write your numbers down in a perfect line. If any of the place value columns are empty in any of the numbers, add in a 0 to act as a placeholder. In the space where you are going to write your answer, place the decimal point in line with all of the others. Add or subtract the decimals. have a little bit of a look at this. Get these rules. Write them down in your flipbook. These words need to be written down. Pause the video. Write them into your flipbook. We must know what these are all about. Let's have a look at some examples of adding and subtracting fractions. We've got 23 and 14 over 100, 8 and 63 over 1,000, and 64 and 2/10. I wonder what that's going to look like as a decimal. 23.140 is this one. 8.063 is this one. Plus 64.2 is this one. Notice the placeholders have been put in. As the rule says, if you've got a 0, put the placeholder in. It's just going to help us. Also notice how they have been set up in an absolute perfect line. Notice the other thing, that the decimal point is all in the same position. First one, I'm in the thousandths here. I've only got 3 thousandths, so I place my 3 thousandths in the thousandths column. Hundredths will be next. I've got 10 hundredths. Put down my 0 and I'll carry my 1. 2 and 3, okay, plus my extra 100th that I carried over will be 4. I've got my decimal point. 5. So it's basically just simple right to left addition on the way forward. Here's an example of subtraction. There we go. The homework tasks, this is effectively, guys, if we can get that concept of making sure we've aligned our numbers together, this is simple addition and subtraction with basic regrouping. This is the task that I need you to have finished tomorrow. I need all 5 of the additions and all 5 of the subtraction questions completed. It's pretty simple this week, so I expect everyone to be able to do it. I'll talk again next week.